Northern Ireland Environment Agency. Is that better?
Yeah.
In some ways, our presentations are very similar but different. I mean, we're DARA, we're a bit of government. There is also a sport NI in Northern Ireland. In some ways, who created this map? I mean, Outdoor Recreation NI, now Outscape, created the map we're going to talk about and created the people in the outdoors monitor in Northern Ireland. That's our what, where, why, who's doing what, how we use it. What we have in Northern Ireland is a strategic outdoor recreation group, which is across government. Doesn't meet very often, but what it does do is kind of agree generally the holistic, what we collectively need across government and agencies to be able to progress and move forward. So what we didn't have in Northern Ireland was the mini survey that was in England, the monitoring engagement in the natural environment. We didn't have a green space map, and we had antiquated legislation, which is what we still have. And lots of the public don't care, and we know this, public don't care who owns something. What they care is that they can go out there and do things. So, me, yes, I work in Northern Ireland Environment Agency, which is in the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. We've moved about a bit in government departments, and we work really closely with and fund Outdoor Recreation NI and now Outscape to do this, because they can work so much better across lots and lots of different bodies. Is that backwards? Did the same presentation. What we have now, okay, just to give you a wee where we're going to get to at the end of this presentation, is an analytical tool which shows all the places and spaces that the public can go. Like in Ireland, we don't have access to all land. It is a big gift of landowners unless it is publicly owned land or NGO land generally. So we have places and spaces. We have a tool that will then tell you how close people are. It'll tell you where the gaps are, what percentage of the population has access to something within council areas, and how much of things there is to enable us to look at what the gaps are. Is this our video? Haven't seen that one. So, as I said, what we didn't have was consistent measurable metrics across strategies and consistent information that we could share and use as a planning tool. And so we decided to start. And about 15, possibly 20 years ago, we started trying to map all publicly owned land. And it was a nightmare because GIS just wasn't quite there. And then in 2017, ORN had a conference in Ellesmere. Who was there? Oh, wow. Carolyn, one person? Wow. Okay, so it just shows you how people change over time, and I'll talk a bit later about the importance of people. Like this. It was outdoor, OSNI, outdoor, what's the English mapping organisation? Ordnance Survey England, yeah. And they were the lead on this conference, and they showed us the green space map and that there, and it made us think, okay, the tech is now there to be able to do it now. Most public organisations in Northern Ireland haven't quite got, all of it yet, but it's getting there, isn't it? And I'll show you how we actually got there. So the tech was there to be able to do it, and Outscape we were able to fund from government to actually bring together the knowledge and the people, the sort of folks that are in this room, every single last one of you, to actually bring that together and turn it into something very, very usable, which you will see later on. It's about people, places, nature, plans, what we want to do, where we want to do it, but we need to be able to get that into all the policies. We need to change the legislation. We need to update we haven't got our updated outdoor recreation strategy. We didn't have a government, now we have. We're actually going to be able to move forward on those policies that we need to be able to drive the money to be able to put in place more infrastructure. In Northern Ireland, access is in DARA for interaction with the natural environment. It is in rural affairs, part of DARA, for developing the rural economy. It is in sport for being active. It is in communities for bringing together communities. It is in health for people being healthier and active. So it doesn't fit perfectly with anybody, but it was great therefore to be able to agree that it needed done, and then for DARA and Department for Infrastructure to say, okay, we'll fund it on behalf of everybody. It didn't really matter who funded it, as long as it was funded it, and there was an organisation that could actually think, yes, we're going to do it. And we want it so that we can then take the policy and put it, hopefully, into our programme for government, now that we have a government, to increase the percentage of the population within 400 metres of publicly accessible green space. Because we know it's good for people, and it's good for nature, for interacting, for people networking with each other, for our health, for our well-being. Now, the people in nature outdoors, our Pomney survey is similar to, is it still called MENI in England?
No, it's called PANS. PANS, People and Nature Survey.
Okay, and in Scotland?
SPANS, Scottish People and Nature Survey.
Excellent. And in Wales? Wales, anybody? Okay.
If it was, it'd be WPAN.
Excellent. And in Ireland, is there a people and nature survey? Is there an equivalent? Did you find one? No? No? Okay. But you do ask those questions as why do you go out, how often do
We
you
have an
go out?
Irish sports monitor which talks about sport, and then it has flexible modules where we can specifically drill down into specific topics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Those things that we actually use then to say, what are the gaps, what do we need to influence, what do we need to change, and I think that's what we're going to be talking about later on in the day. So it showed what we needed to do, what we needed to change, and that's what we're going to need to do next. What does it tell us? Emma's going to tell us what it tells us, and then I might come and sum up, possibly. This is how it all happened. I just funded it and wanted it to happen. Emma actually made it happen and did all the work. So much work.
Yes, thank you, Maia. Maia's done the important bit, and I'll now do the nerdy bit, and hopefully not bore you too much with the data. So we were provided with data from over 20 organisations, the same as within the south, we only have 11 local authorities to deal with, which is a lot easier, mostly, but the same idea. These organisations provided us data in various different formats. We got points, polygons, tables of data. So my job was to take all that and make it into something useful and usable. So this is the green space map at the minute. So the map contains a green space layer, so that includes the woodlands, parks and gardens, open countryside, coastlines and mountains, amenity green space and nature reserves. We also have an off-road trails layer, so that includes all the walking trails, cycling trails, multi-use trails, greenways and towpaths within Northern Ireland. So you can see the figures there that we have just under 2,000 miles of off-road trail. Now here's a bit of a brain wrecker, make sure you're all awake this early in the morning. So this is basically a map of how much there is in Northern Ireland of both green space and trails. So to simplify it for you, so best case scenario is G1, so you'll see in the key there, that means that there's lots of green space and lots of trails. The worst case scenario is T3, so the lighter coloured areas. So you can see how the density of green space and trails is divided across Northern Ireland, and you can see that it's not equal across the province. So one of our aims, as Maia had mentioned, was to quantify how many households are within 400 metres of a green space or off-road trail. So to do this, we use shape preserving buffers for the trails, and we use service areas for the green spaces, using access points which have been collected by organisations, data providers, and also manually by myself, using various different data sources, so trail networks and where they intersected green space, road networks and where they intersected the green spaces. And this allowed us then to create the service areas, which provides a much more accurate indicator of how many addresses are within that 400 metre radius. So the results of this then, and we've just recently updated these figures for the latest environmental statistics report. So these figures as of this year are that 47.2% of households in Northern Ireland are within 400 metres. When we extend this then to a kilometre, so roughly a 15-minute walk, we have 73% of households. And I should note that the green spaces that have been used for proximity are a minimum size of 2 hectares. Anything smaller than that is included within the map, but it's those over 2 hectares that are included for the analysis. And for 2 kilometres, we've extended this to 20 hectare green spaces, so 83.6% of households are within proximity, 2 kilometre proximity. The vast difference then we see is when we break this down to an urban and rural split. So we all know the Emerald Isle, country known for being green. So we have a lot of rural space and a lot of people living in the middle of nowhere, including myself, who may be surrounded by green spaces, but it's not necessarily those public the accessible green spaces that we're measuring. So you can see there that 56.4% of addresses in urban areas are within 400 metres of green space, but when we move to the rural areas, this figure decreases to 8.8%, so quite a stark difference there. We've also broken this down across the council areas. There's 11 local authorities within Northern Ireland, so you can see that there's vast differences across the authorities as well. The more urban ones have a higher percentage, and those more rural areas have a lower percentage. We can also break this down further, and we can use various different geographies. These have all been obtained from NIEA, so the Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency. And as a result of the previous census in 2021, NIEA created these new super data zones. So the last edition was super output areas, but these are the new ones as of 2021. So you can see there that the darker areas have better proximity to green space and the lighter areas have a lower proximity. This geography also allows us to compare various different health statistics and deprivation statistics, various different things, and compare them to access to green space. One interesting map, and I think this is one of the last ones that I'll show you. So this is proximity versus provision. So yes, there may be lots of green spaces, but can people actually get access to them? One area I'd like to point out is that big green area around here. This is from Annaloma District Council. You can see there, that means there's lots of green spaces, lots of trails in that area. But when we look at the same thing in the proximity analysis, you can see that it's quite low area for proximity to green spaces, highlighting that importance of using the access points and the shape preserving buffers and service areas for the analysis. When we zoom in then to closer examples, all the green spaces and trails that are within the map haven't been quality controlled, so anything that's a green space that's been provided from the local authorities and NGOs, it's been anything that's gone in there, and there's no quality analysis done on it, so this example shows that quite well. Example 1 is an area in Derry, so this is the green areas are green space. You can see that there's also a trail out through it shown in blue. When we look at the Strava heat map for the area, you can see that there's very little usage in that green space, and this is one of the main access points. That super data zone has 100% of addresses within that 400 metre proximity. When we compare this then to another example, same idea, super data zone with 100% of addresses within 400 metre proximity. This is the green space in here, and you can see the Strava heat line is a lot darker than the previous example, and this is the main access point. Highlights the importance of looking closer at the data and that it hasn't been quality controlled, and there's differences in access across the country. You can also use the map for assessing impact on building trails. At Outscape, we love building things, we love building trails and getting more people outside. So more recently, since the creation of the Green Space Map, I've been helping the place shaping team to analyse the impact of some of their trails, looking at the proximity figures for super data zones or council areas currently, and adding in maybe a new proposed trail and seeing what impact that can have on the local population. This is one example here. You can see this trail, and this is Bunkers Hill in Castlewellan, County Down. And you can see after the trail has been built, these addresses here in blue are now directly within that 400 metre proximity of the trail. So that's roughly about 100 addresses that have been impacted by building that one new trail. So that's not it. Thankfully, there's more to come. We're definitely nowhere near finished yet. As I mentioned, quality is a big thing, and we're now starting to look at accessible green space standards and quality measures for the green spaces. So that's one thing that will be up and coming in the next few years, and we'll be providing a quality assessment for all of the green spaces in the map. We've also provided some training for local authorities and for general users in Northern Ireland on some of our apps. So we have, as Maia showed there, a dashboard and we have a map here. They're all online, publicly accessible resources for everybody. So we've provided some training on them, and I'll show you another QR code in a minute where you can access all those resources. We're also going to be working on collecting all the access points for off-road trails. As I mentioned, we have for green spaces already. So the next stage is collecting those access points for off-road trails to increase the use of the service areas and make the data a lot more accurate. And here is your QR code. So this is our dashboard. It has all the layers, all the data you could ever want for green spaces in Northern Ireland. And this is our map viewer here, with just a wee bit more detailed analysis. That QR code will take you to the Outscape website, and you can access all the links there for all of the data, as well as the training resources and videos. Thank you, and a big thank you as well to Maia. This project couldn't have happened without Maia and without her influence and her passion for green space map. I don't think there's two people in the world that know more about green spaces than Maia and I, so a big thank you to her and to Dara as well.
So just to say, one of the other things that we are really, I guess, wanting to move towards then is to update the Outdoor Recreation Action Plan for Northern Ireland and the legislation as well. Following in some ways what Ireland has been doing, you've been able to move so much faster on that, and even during COVID, which is fantastic, but actually to use this to look at and to really explain that we now have the data that says there's huge gaps and that people need, we know people need, but we can now prove that people need. Before, it was in our heads. We all knew it, but we couldn't say it definitely is, and that's the importance of having the data, but the plan to use it. And we're going to move to looking at actually big data use. So you've been using Strava maps. But we're now looking at using lots and lots of programs that bounce off the cloud and on our phones and our gadgets, and looking at therefore how many people are using areas, not using people counters, but this looks as if it may be a much cheaper way of doing it, so that might be in next year's presentation. All right, thank you. Thank you.